central.
Okay.
Because Bend calls itself central, and they're more like south central. But anyway, so yeah, we're east of the Cascades. So the part that's trying to get connected with become part of Idaho instead of staying in Oregon.
Nice you made it on, Danielle. Appreciate it. So we have Ellie from Oregon, and everyone's introducing themselves. And Danielle is now used to be from Illinois, but now she's back to being from Indiana.
Oh.
She just moved, or in the process, but she's putting her kids to bed, so she can't talk. So we are in the middle. We are in the middle of a two-part series. We're discussing the idea of guarding your eyes, watching, being careful. And it was really nice when we did the class, because I really did feel that, wow, people are so advanced and sensitized in this topic. And it's really nice to see that people are really conscious of it and people are really working on it. So what we were discussing was this idea of getting desensitized, that as we are exposed to more, it becomes less and less meaningful to us. It becomes less and less, it sort of shocks us less. We become more callous. And of course, it desensitizes us to godliness, to God. And the more the world fills our mind and our heart, the less room there is for God to fill our mind and our heart. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Jenny.
So Jenny, this is Ellie from Oregon. This is Jenny from Vancouver. Yes, Vancouver. I think from Vancouver, that area of the world. Something else that we have to understand as we allow things to penetrate our minds, we can have reruns forever. Unwanted pop-ups, instant reruns, whatever we've seen, whatever we've read, whatever we've heard stays in our subconscious literally forever. Now, we are not responsible for our subconscious. We are not demanded to control our subconscious, because we really can't. But when it reaches our conscious mind, that is when we can control, and we must control the thoughts that come in from our subconscious. But anything that our subconscious has absorbed is there forever. And that's why, of course, there are things that we can't control, and things can just, cross our radar without any ability on our part to filter. But when we do have the ability, when we can be in control, it's very, very important, because it's not okay, just now, just this moment, just tonight, no, this stays in us forever. And when a person is absorbing from a negative space, it's considered that every energy in this world is really coming from a spiritual energy above. And there's like a spiritual chamber of unwanted thoughts, of these negative thoughts. And if you create this channel of connection, if you open yourself up to this type of energy, you keep receiving more and more. Like, just envision if you went on YouTube and you watched something, so they would graciously send you like 5 to 20 to I don't know how many suggestions of other things you probably want to watch as well. So they're not the first to do that, because that's how it works with all forces of evil, with these unwanted thoughts. If you open yourself up and allow yourself to see and allow yourself to think and allow yourself to feel, well, you've made a connection with that energy. So it keeps sending you more freebie thoughts that you're not looking for and that come popping into your brain. And that's why you really want to guard yourself initially, that you shouldn't have that connection in the first place with this chamber of negative thoughts. And we do this, of course, by setting our standards, what we feel is appropriate for us, keeping in mind, of course, that whatever you allow yourself, in essence, you're allowing your children as well, if that's relevant to you. So what your standard is, what you think is safe and appropriate for your children, and whatever you deem safe and appropriate for your children, that's your standard. And there's lots of things to consider when you're thinking about your standard. Obviously, there's so much out there in the world on internet and our computers and TV and all the media. People were discussing last time Facebook, and perhaps thinking of not being on Facebook because all of the stuff that's freely shared there with nudity, with violence, with relationships, with inappropriate language, with perspectives in contrast to God's vision. Meaning there could be things that are, well, what exactly makes it wrong? The perspective is wrong. It's a more subtle wrong. The message is wrong. So can you think of your standards from your childhood? What were the standards of your childhood, and did they help you? Who can think of the standards they experienced when they were children?
I always felt that I was raised overly strict, but as I've come to understand this, being pure with your thoughts and the things that you allow into your mind, I'm seeing that the standard wasn't that strict. We were not allowed to go to movies at all. The books that we read and the things that we listened to on the radio or watched TV was carefully guarded by our parents. And I loosened that standard for my own children, and I'm seeing the negative repercussions of that in my grandchildren, and that the values that I hold, my children don't hold. And so I think that even though I felt my parents were overly restrictive, that for spiritual growth and purity of mind, that theirs was the higher standard.
So that's interesting, because you did not appreciate it and you gave your children much more freedom. And now you see that actually maybe your parents were correct.
Yeah. So, yeah. And it's disheartening to see the things that my grandchildren will watch and participate in.
And you're saying you can't complain because you allowed your children the same thing. So it's like, how do I say, don't do to them what I did to you?
Right. And I didn't allow, I was not as permissive as they are, but I can see how my being more permissive and not guarding them led to the permissiveness for my grandchildren.
Sure. We always have to think of it in terms of like what we have as we pass it on to the next generation. It could go in either direction. The next generation could be more passionate and more connected to God and have much more in the cup than we're giving them. But if they don't, then they're probably going to have less as we pass from cup to cup, like we lose something in the process. So it does make sense that if you were more open, your kids said, yeah, this is the way to go. And their version of open is just the next step.
Yes.
Makes total sense. Becca, what were you going to say?
Well, I'm in sort of the same boat. The only thing is I had two conflicting examples. My mother would have preferred to be more like your parents. She really had some very strict ideas as to what, should be watched and what should be done and everything. But she married a man completely opposite, from completely a different way of thinking. And he was more of the mindset, well, she has to know what's in the world. She has to know what's out there, so there was a conflict there. And so I grew up kind of conflicted, and I was way more permissive with my children than my mother would have preferred, she was strict to a certain degree, but with Dad being in the house and watching things that he was watching, we got some of it. And yeah, there's some of that I still remember to this day. And now I'm seeing my grandchildren listening to, my kids and my grandchildren listening to and watching things that now I'm thinking, what were you thinking? Why didn't you, guard that more? Yeah.
Because maybe when you were raising them, you didn't understand, and you were sort of coming as a rebound effect from your childhood, and you weren't, you didn't have the 30-year down the road perspective that you have now of that wisdom of understanding that no, ultimately this isn't the best for the children, and this continues. But you're saying, both of you, so you're Ellie's saying she really actually did get a certain moral strength from her childhood, and Becky, you're saying sort of with mixed messages, and there was stuff out there and you do remember it. Anyone else can think of what was the standards in their childhood and how that did or didn't help them?
Well, for me, it was just the
Dixie.
fact. Hi. It was.
This is Dixie. Wait, Dixie. Ellie from Oregon, Dixie from Colorado.
Oh, wow. Got some distance.
Hi, Dixie. Nice to meet you.
You too. My thing is, I'm older than you guys. So I was when the first TV came out. My parents got a TV. And there was nothing bad on TVs. It was Ed Sullivan, and it was Rawhide, and it was the Lone Ranger. And so we were raised on really great stuff. But then when it came to raising our kids, they didn't have those really good old-fashioned, not immoral things. I mean, the people were dressed. Of course, we did shoot guns and stuff, and we still do. But, it's sad how it deteriorated to the point where people can't raise their kids without the influence of immorality. Because we never had that influence when we were kids, and our kids were raised with horses and the ranch. And so they didn't have a lot of the TV that the kids all nowadays watch. And they all turned out pretty darn good. And, they didn't go, and they don't, I'm trying to think, but the kids now, my grandkids, they have been let pretty much run wild. And so that's where the times ended and the more immorality started. So that's my story.
So you're saying you felt you were raised properly, and you feel you raised your kids properly, but now the same way you were raised and you raised your kids doesn't work for your grandchildren because of just the differing standards of what's out there in all the various medias.
Yeah. I mean, it's right in front of their face. You cannot stop it. You cannot turn on a TV. Of course, we haven't had TV forever, but the kids, the movies, you cannot watch a halfway decent movie without nudity. There's nothing there that these kids don't see by the time they're 10, 12 years old. It's horrible. And there's no way to stop it unless you do it in your home. And our daughter-in-law loves the TV and the movies, and they live on them. And so that's what the kids get.
The only way to stop it, so we're going back, so what Ellie said is how she was raised is her parents were strict, and it seems like she was sort of resentful, though she didn't seem like she broke the rules. So she did have that moral base, but she sort of resented the strictness. Becca was sort of saying a bit of the same, though maybe it wasn't as consistent. The only way to really do it, which this be a message to Jenny and to Danielle and to Christelle, who have choice, not to have grandchildren, not about children, is to create in the home such an atmosphere of like, we're different and we're proud of it. That, yeah, we're different, and we're happy we're different. We're proud we're different. It feels good. We're grateful we're different. The children have to have a pride in their unique status, a pride. Look. I see. Okay. Oh wow. A pride that I see who gave you chocolate. Yeah. A pride that they don't know what all the other kids know, and they're not seeing and exposed to what all the other kids are seeing. Because if they don't have that pride and joy and feeling good about it, then even if in your house you don't let it, but there's the neighbor down the block, and there's what the kids are doing in school, and of course we discussed last week how so many of you homeschool for that reason. But even then, I mean, they're not in a bubble. They live in a world and they're gonna be surrounded by other people. And therefore it's really important to cultivate a real pride and a sense of special. We're special. And we're special. We're Noahides. I mean, they're not going to be too many Noahides on their block parties. So it's a specialness. We're special as Noahides, and we're special because we protect ourselves from what's out there in the world, because we believe, the mind, the heart, these are very, very fine gifts God gave us, and we want to keep them protected. We want to keep them pure. We want to keep them tarnish free. So anyone else on the thoughts of how they were raised and how that impacted them?
So I would say I was raised pretty lax, and I've went the opposite direction because I have a lot of subconscious thoughts from things that I've seen and heard and been around, and then not only, of course, because I was raised pretty lax, but then I was pretty lax early on in my life, and yeah. Want my kid to have to go through that, to have to like thought block and change their life and turn things around and so on and so forth. I want him to have like we want him to have like an easier time of it, and if he doesn't see it or hear it, then he won't have to ever like turn from it, hopefully.
Sure, that's beautiful. And Danielle's saying the same, which means you were exposed to a lot, and you don't want your child to struggle with what you had to struggle with, or have to still to this day struggle with, because like we said, it's inside of you forever. So you want to just give him the gift that he's free from that. And that's a beautiful gift. And again, that the energy in the home has to really be this is a gift. We're creating a gift for you. And it's when he comes home and says, oh, the kids are all talking, doing, and it's like, yeah, we could do that, but you don't want to put them down, but you want to more say like, but we're trying harder to give you a better education, a purer education, a more godly education, whatever is the right word, that the child appreciates that it's a gift. That the child doesn't feel like Ellie said, she felt a little bit of like resentful, but stifled, not allowed. So you don't want the child to feel, oh, not allowed. You want the child to feel like I'm being protected. Like this is I appreciate what my parents are doing for me. I appreciate that my parents are really protecting. So everybody has to basically determine what is my standard. And again, as I'm saying, for the people that have children in their home now, like Jenny and Danielle and Christelle, you have to really think in terms of what do I want my child's standard to be? Because that's really what your standard has to be. And people don't have children in their home, it more really is what do they feel is their standard? And then you have to think, how do I enforce it? But before you start thinking of enforcing your standard, you really have to think, what is my standard? What do I feel is what I want in my home? And I can still feel this is a godly home. There's a godly energy in this home. There is a feeling of God in the air, because whatever we allow in, that's what affects the air. And if we want this to be a godly place and a place where God is comfortable and God is expressed, we don't want other blockages. We don't want other junk that's in conflict. And it's worth working on. This is work. This is really work. Sorry, I'm dodging my son's head. How do you make children feel like it's a good thing and not a restriction? I think in general, it has a lot to do with the joy factor in the home. That when there's a joy in the home and a pride in the home, and there's a lot of like rah rah us, our family, and this sense of like family identity, family pride, family doing things together. So it inculcates in the child this sense of like, yeah, I'm part of the Gosnell family. We're different. We're great. You want the child to feel that like we're great. We're great. We play together. We have fun together. Dixie, you're going to add?
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
You make it to where you being different are the special ones, and that how those other people are in the wrong, and it's very disgusting what they do, and that you are the special people, and that you are doing the special things. And that's my suggestion.
Right. But I would just be a little careful. I don't know if I want to tell my children, it depends, of course, what you're talking about, that it's disgusting what all the other kids on the block are doing. I don't know if I want to give them that message. It depends. I mean, they might be doing some disgusting things. I don't know. But I definitely would want to give the children, I think that it's very important to give the children the message of specialness. Special. We're gifted, we're lucky, we're blessed, we're special, we're Noahides. I mean, there's 8 billion mankind. How many Noahides are there? So we're very blessed that God allowed us to know about being a Noahide and to be a Noahide. And as such, we're blessed to know of a higher morality than the people around us know of. We're blessed to have this clear, that it's clear. I think. Yes. Okay, so why don't you go down to Maisha and ask Maisha to help you, okay? Ask Maisha. Yes, ask Maisha. 1 second, commercial break.
Well, it's good to see
Sorry. I was just escorting him out. I think I could say for my own children, I very, very strongly have tried to give my children that message. I have Dober is my youngest, he's 8, my oldest is 32. So definitely try to give that message very strongly of a lot of joy. I think it's very important. Joy in the family, joy in being together, joy in how we live and how we serve God. It shouldn't be, you don't want them to feel your relationship to God is a burden to you. And this applies also to grandchildren and children that are adults. You don't want them to, if you complain, I have to do this, I can't do this. So then right away, they're not getting that, well, right now you're tired and you're complaining, but really you love that you have this relationship with God. They just hear it's too much for you, it's a burden, it's not pleasant, it's restrictive. So you want to really make sure that the messages you give outward, which means to yourself and to your spouse and to your children and to your grandchildren, is I'm so blessed to be in this relationship with God. And the choices we make are part of that blessing. We're so blessed that we can be so close to God. And if we want to be this close to God, we realize that, like you gave an example of TV, TV blocks us. Why would I want a blockage between me and God? I don't want that blockage. I love that I have this relationship with God. And it's so special that we have this relationship with God. And I think, like Dixie said, when your kids are busy doing good, healthy things, it's not oh, I have nothing to do. Let me go online. Let me turn on TV. Let me hear what's on the radio. If they're busy and it's not available and it's not an option and there's joy in the house and there's pride, I think it works. Becca?
Okay, so I think some of you know that my grandson stays with us fairly frequently, and he usually stays, a lot of times he stays for a week at a time when he stays. So he's going to be 10. Now he's doing better, but sometimes I would catch him watching a video that I didn't think was very good for him. And so, I have no control over what he watches at his house. But one time he was watching a video and I couldn't really explain, because I was telling him, you don't need to be watching that. And he said, why? What's wrong with it? And the best I could come up with at the time was, well, if you can't look at that and see that there is something wrong with that, then I don't know what to say to you. But so I did that one time, but then the other night he mentioned maybe having a bad dream or something like that. I forget what it was, just thinking about negative things. And I said, well, some of that has to do with being careful what you look at, what you watch, because it stays in your brain. I have things that I've seen in movies or on TV and as a child, and they still come back to me, and I have to literally tell my brain, no, get out. You're not welcome there, and consciously try to think of something else. But so I just wonder, what can some of the things that you said helps to maybe, find a way to make it to where it's joyful, but maybe I'm wondering if I could just say, well, it's to protect you, just like your mom making you sit in the car seat all those years, and some of the other things she's doing to protect you. So making you be careful what you watch, it's to protect you. So I'm wondering if maybe he
Yeah,
could.
that's a good message, that it's protection. I think you have to say a bunch of different things because you never know which day what's going to click. And sometimes something that doesn't click today might be remembered and click in 6 months. So, we give all the good messages. Now, obviously, as a grandparent, it is a different relation than a parent, because a parent could be much more firm and these are the rules, and a grandparent doesn't have generally that same like authoritarian relationship with their grandchildren, even if they're in their house. Sometimes very difficult when you're not raising, but your grandchild's in your house, especially if they're getting a different message from their parents. But yeah, you could definitely say protection, and definitely say, this is how grandma and granddad do it, and we're so grateful we do it this way. And you could definitely say, what I remember is having images from when I was 4 or 5 that still hurt me now. It's been many years since grandma was 4 or 5, but it stays in my mind forever. So yeah, we don't want that stuff in your mind. And I think what you said, if I can't explain to you what's wrong about this, like there's nothing to say, it could be like, if nothing in this makes you feel it's wrong, that shows you've really watched, you've seen a lot too much, that this doesn't even feel wrong anymore. Because and I mean that seriously, we do actually have a natural sensitivity to what's wrong. Unfortunately, it can crushed very quickly and at a very young age. But there is a natural sensitivity. And it should be something that a child does get wrong. But for ourselves, to inspire ourselves, we want to be inspired also and recognize that when we really guard ourselves, it's going to sensitize us, and which therefore it's going to mean our prayer is going to be more meaningful and God will be more meaningful. Because even if we have it in a much more sensitized way than most of the world, we also have absorbed things in the past, or maybe currently, willingly, or just product of the world we live in. And all of that thing is a blockage between us and God, is a blockage between us and sincere prayer and sincere Torah study. And when we clean out what's in our system, it helps us feel God's presence more strongly. In other words, it's sort of like God world. The more strong world is, the more remote God is. The more strong God is, the more remote world is. So if I let a lot of world into my brain, it's just hard for God to be as real. And if I block out and just, I'm not even saying negative, but just make the world more remote, this allows God to be more, central place, the centrifugal force of my life, and therefore that I really am sensitized to him and I really feel him. And again, this helps your children, because beyond protecting your children, you're also setting for your children an example. You could also ask God that the work you're doing with yourself should help your children. Like measure for measure, as I'm doing, this should help my children, that they also should do. But I'm saying I do feel for children, joy, pride, and love are really key energies that have to be in the home. And if the home is a home of joy, pride in our identity and lots of love between all the people, kids feel good in their home. And kids appreciate what they have in their home. And even if they might want to watch a movie because they're human and everyone else is talking about it and it sounds so much fun, but they realize they have something better. And maybe they are going to sneak out to a friend's and watch a movie. You know, like it does happen. But if the general energy is the pride and the joy and the love, that's going to be anchors that are going to hold them into your home and your way. And I just missed that chat. Yes. Yes. Joy, pride, love, and protection. And there's, again, the concept is we are different. That's cool. That's great. And obviously your children know that. They're Noahide. Of course, they're different than the world around them. But that's great that we're different. We're so lucky we're different. We're so blessed we're different. We're chosen. Right? 8 billion mankind. How many Noahides? Every one of you is chosen by God. So when you give
Can I
yourself
make
that
a
message,
suggestion?
sure, Dixie.
My sister, she's kind of a nut. She's really fun. She has all sorts of fun sayings and stuff, and she's got wit. You know how some people just have a lot of wit.
Mm-hmm.
And she always says, it is so fun to be crazy. Isn't it fun? And so if we put a little thing like, it's so fun to be different, it's so fun, and make it a song, you know, and
Exactly.
make it fun.
A cheer.
Yeah.
Your family's cheer. Your
Because
family
I pick
mantra.
it up too, because I'll say, yep, it is sure fun to be crazy. And I'll tell everybody, oh, it's fun to be crazy. And, you know, so I mean, that's a suggestion. Just make it really fun.
Make it fun. I agree. Fun activities, fun family things that they're not doing. I mean, isn't it, can you imagine, I mean, maybe it's exaggeration, but imagining like a typical American family and they're all like on a road trip, but like everyone has their own device that they're watching. So they're not even talking in the car. Like, you know, they're not even watching the same movie, because nowadays you have their own individual screens, you know, built into the cars, or you have your own phone, you have your own tablet. Everyone's in their own isolated little bubble. That's so sad. Imagine everyone coming to supper table, everyone's like on their phone or you know, texting or watching, or so what they have is great. I mean, like what's out there is not much competition. It used to be that the other side was much more enticing. I don't think it's so enticing. Maybe for a child it looks a little enticing, but I really think joy and love and pride are like far more enticing, feel much more better. And then you add Dixie's fun, and like I said, fun activities and families things. It could always be centered around food. That's an easy, fun thing, you know. So it's just, it creates very positive, warm feelings for home and for their home and the pride in their home. And I would definitely say to the children many times, we are so blessed. We were chosen to be Noahides. Why do we merit to know about this? Why do we merit to have this when there's so many billions of very nice people out there in the world? They just don't know. But we were chosen. God chose us. And that's a really very, very powerful message to give a child, that he or she should know, I was chosen by God. I was chosen to be a Noahide. God wants me. God chose me. God blessed me. And then this is just part of the same package deal of being this Noahide. But you will see for yourself, the more you guard yourself, the more you purify yourself, everything in your life starts becoming different. When the filter is purity, your thoughts about your spouse are different. Your thoughts about your in-laws are different. Your thoughts about yourself, about your body image are different. All these things that you didn't realize were connected and you didn't realize were being affected. But as you guard yourself more and more, these things start looking different. And then you'd be like, oh, I didn't even realize I had some foreign influences filtering how I looked at my spouse, at my own body image, at my relationship with my friends and my neighbors and my colleagues. I didn't realize there was all that junk there, that when it's gone, I just look at these things differently. And of course, if a person, yes, Ellie.
Oh, I was just thinking that one of the struggles that I've had throughout my life is that feeling different and feeling on the outside and those types of things. But in the last year or so, I came across the practice of Musar. And did I say that right? Musar. And as I have worked on developing positive character traits within me, two things have happened. One, my own self-confidence in being different has grown. And I wish I had known this when my children were little so I could have taught them about this. But the other is that I recognize from like coming at me, I can see negative character traits and get out of the way kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And so as you're saying this, I'm thinking that pride and that joy of being different really seems to be more cemented as I understand what kind of character traits are pleasing to God and draw me closer to him. And so
Because it may be different isn't different. Different is more godly,
yeah,
more refined, more godly, more holy. So that's it doesn't even have to be, it's fun to be different. It's like it's a whole different spiritual level to be different.
right.
It's a different
and I
plane of
embrace
existence.
Yeah, and now I can embrace that difference that I see between myself and others, and because I have lived so much of the negative consequences of not having developed those and making poor choices, things like that. And so now today, I want to be different. I don't want that I see out there, if that makes
Right.
sense.
And I think for adults that made these choices, that's a much easier natural choice. But when we're talking about children, where of course you are absolutely right, a child, with a very strong desire to be part of the herd.
Right.
It really is. It really, really, really is. And we have to recognize that our children could very strongly have that, because that is very normal. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. It's very normal to have that sense of wanting to be part of the herd, wanting to blend in, the safe, anonymity. And we have to, but no Noahide is part of any herd.
Yeah.
So we really do have to confront that with our children, understand that's something our children are going to, maybe when they're teenagers, a certain part of their life, they're going to have to deal with. Even now when they're children and they're just absorbing it all, but we have to give them a lot of strength and pride in their own identity. And as Ellie's saying, in their closeness to God, which comes, like you're saying, from the Musar and from working on yourself and refining yourself. As you get closer and closer to God, it's like we want to give them like a God pride, and that sense of God reality and God pride, because for sure once they hit the teenage years, oh my gosh, what teenager doesn't want to look exactly as crazy as every other teenager on the block? So therefore they're totally swallowed by that herd, and that's definitely, the stronger the roots, the stronger the anchors, the more loving, the more joyful, the more pride, then the more they'll be able to handle that, and we'll handle it with grace and well.
Yeah. What I saw in my children was we homeschooled when they were younger, and then life circumstances changed. And as my two younger were entering the junior high school years, we needed to put them in public school. And the conflict for them was that children that they had grown up with, either in the homeschool group, or at that time we were Christian, and so going to the church, that these children behaved one way in the homeschool group or in the church, but then when they were out in public, they behaved completely different and with poor character traits. And I didn't know how to help my daughters overcome that or to deal with that. And as I'm studying Musar, it's like, oh, I wish I had known this then, because I could have given them tools to feel confident in themselves as they strove to perfect their character. And I'm wondering if, because I did teach a lot about values, but I'm wondering now if values aren't they're important, but more important is that really that understanding who you are and who you want to be in order to combat what you see out there in the world.
Yes, I agree with you. Very, 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 very important. And you know, everything is the hand of God, and the tools you have now are the tools you have now, and the tools you had then were the tools you had then, and you did the best you could with the tools you had, and that was part of God's plan. But all of us are works in progress. So therefore, you're growing at this point. None of us are done. And Jenny and Diana and Crystal that have young children or younger children, they're, you know, they're soaking this all in and trying to think out what they're going to do, and learn from everyone else's mistakes, right? But everyone at every point, yes, 100%, 100%, 100%. It's also, of course, when we free up our time from all these time-wasting mediums, you're freeing up your time space, you're freeing up your head space to focus on meaningful things, on your children, on your personal development, on your character development, on your relationship with God. So what we need to do is create a plan. Everyone needs to create a plan. And you need to, we said first, figure out what your standards are, what you ideally want your standards to be. And, you know, if you're comfortable with what you feel are the appropriate standards, and this is what's going to keep the, you know, the junk out of your house and out of your brain and out of your kids and out of your husband, this is okay. Then how do we get from where we are to the plan? So I think the best way to do it, of course, some people like, you know, can go, as we say, cold turkey and all that, and that's great. But for everyone else out there, it's best to gradually wean yourself away from what you know you need to stop. And again, I remember when we discussed this last time, most people here are pretty good and pretty careful, but you know, everyone still has that where they know they need to improve. So you need to create a list of steps and follow it. I think it's easiest to start removing what's easiest to remove, what you're less interested in anyway, what feeds you the least, what's not such a big deal. So you start by taking away things that, yeah, not really such a big deal. I do it, I watch it, I see it, I hear it, it's in the background. It's not really so important to me. I mean, I don't really think it's so important to me. Great, cut that out. Beautiful, you just freed up so much. Took away, just imagine like the noxious fumes in your house. You just like so decrease the pollution. And that wasn't even hard. And when you do that, and it really was no big deal, in like a week, take away the next thing that's a bit harder. But you're on a roll because you had self-discipline for a week with that other thing so you could stretch. And you're going to gradually keep going. Anyone can share an example of something they would like to take away. And some things we have to take away, and some things we're going to keep with caution, with good filters. So let's start with the simpler thing. Anyone have anything they would like to take away?
I was going to
share something, it gives other people ideas.
I have a show that I watch every Friday night, and it's a political show. And as we're like talking about this, I'm like, okay, that has to go.
Okay, fine. You know, you told yourself it's politics, it's this, it's that. I have to be knowledgeable, the world, all the stuff we tell ourselves. It's not really so bad, intelligent people. All right, fine. Christelle knows. Friday night politics show, done. Anyone else has something they want to just completely cut?
There's a show that I watch that my husband will come in and he'll see that I'm watching it and he will turn around and walk out of the room. And I've asked him about that, and it's because it has some pretty explicit sex scenes in it. And I thought, well, I'm a grown-up, I'm married, this is not going to bother me. But the fact that it bothers him, that to the point that he'll leave the room, he won't come in and join me and watch. I'm thinking that probably needs to go.
Probably. Okay, good. You thought of something. Anyone else thought of something that needs to go? Becca.
For me, it's an online game. I mean, for my part of it, it's not bad, because it's decorating virtual rooms and houses. I love it. And I've even started using Hebrew words in the names of my rooms and things like that. And so I try to keep it, and I have put limits on the time somewhat. I from before Shabbat on Friday night until an hour after, I am not allowed on that game at all. And so I put that limit on there, but I really need to spend less time on it. That would be my limit that I need to. Otherwise, I'm really doing much better on guarding my eyes. In fact, even the ads, some of the ads that come up on the phone, boop, I'll turn it real quick before before I see very much of it or something. But I could stand to limit my screen time more. Yeah.
Limiting screen time. Okay, you're saying it's not so much that you think the screen, what you're doing on the screen's a problem, but the time of the screen's a problem.
Yeah,
Which of course makes sense. Quantity, quality definitely goes together. Anyone else, something they think they would like to take away or keep with caution? Jenny?
Yeah, I just last, I think 2 weeks ago, I stopped watching the news and I heard it only from from some of my friends. They told me, but I don't really watch now, so I took away that thing.
That's great.
And I'm no longer watching the news, and I feel more positive. And maybe this time, I started since yesterday to I'm trying to be minimalist and teaching my son to be like that. Get rid of the things that you don't need. Just keep the things that you only need, and it's gonna help you. It's like getting rid of the burden, and yeah, it's getting rid of the negativity. So I think that's the one I'm teaching him again, because 6 months ago I was sad. So I did not notice that I kept buying stuffs, and that's it. And then now I'm getting rid of them, and no attachment to anything. So that's better. So I think that's good also, that kids learn to be, to learn to keep things that they need only, and don't buy stuffs that they don't really need. It's gonna help their finances, and it's gonna help their mind.
I think you're absolutely right. You're totally right. That's a whole everything we didn't go into, but that is totally true. You're absolutely right. Definitely, just like we were saying before about the noxious fumes, the pollutants in the atmosphere. So definitely everything gives off its own energy. And we want to have good things in our home, and holy things in our home, and meaningful things in our home, and a lot of other things. Yeah, I agree with you. 100%. 100%. Ellie, you want to add to that?
Yeah, what Jenny was saying reminded me of something when I do nutritional education workshops. And when I'm talking with the participants, I'm trying to remember how Jenny said it, but it reminded me of this. I don't talk about taking things away. I talk more about adding in. And so it's what are the good things that you need to add into your diet? So we talk about, as close to nature as you can get. So adding in the fruits, adding in the vegetables, adding in the whole grains. And that when you add those first, there's so much less room for added sugars, highly processed foods, things like that. So I'm thinking, as I'm looking at my own life, that there's times when I say, because of what's going on with health issues and things like that, well, I didn't have time to do cheetahs today. I didn't have time to do read Psalms. I didn't have time, but how much screen time did I have? How much TV time? So I'm thinking for my own personal well-being, I need to adopt that same attitude as, let's put all the good stuff in first and see what's left over. And yeah, ouch.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. That's so true. Time management. You first put in the important pieces, and then the less important, whatever fits around, and some things will, and some things that didn't need to be there in the first place. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone else have something they could think of for themselves very personally they would like to take away or minimize with better filters, keep with caution, or remove entirely? Okay, so I'm gonna, unfortunately, I know it's like 5 minutes early, but I'm gonna go now because I have to go to something else, which isn't on Zoom. I actually have to physically travel. So usually I could go from thing to thing on Zoom, but here I actually have to stop to get to it to something else. So we didn't completely finish everything I wanted to do, but I'm glad we got through this piece of it because I was very happy that people shared things that they want to get rid of because it sort of makes us think about other things. And just, just different areas, just different areas people can think about, like print media, newspapers, magazines, books. Is there anything in that arena that I need to be more careful with? Music, lots of messages in music. Anything in that arena I need to be more careful with? Podcasts. People listen to hours of podcasts as they're jogging or walking or driving or anything in the podcasts that are inappropriate, not putting my head in a good space, or as like Jenny said with the news, a positive space, a healthy space, a organic value space. Videos could be YouTube, videos could be movies, videos could be TV, videos could be internet sites, videos could be apps, social media, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. Obviously I didn't touch on everything here, but you get the idea that there's a lot of stuff in our life. And there's, I think now more than ever in our life, and really just thinking of these different areas in terms of, is there something here that I need to remove? Is there something here that I need to be more careful with? Or just like Ellie said with her example with that show, she's like, she didn't think there's any problem, but if her husband so much thinks there's a problem, there probably is a problem. Very often what I think is when we do something, it's very hard for us to see it's a problem because we're doing it and we're a good person, so how could there be a problem? And when we step away and stop doing it, we're like, oh my gosh, wow, what a problem. How did I not realize all that time? So take the time over this week to really think and to make a list, to make a plan. And I'm saying start with the easiest things, with things that aren't so meaningful. You could step away from them. And then you have your goal in a week or so to take the next thing on the list. As you see how much better you feel without that garbage, without that pollutant, you could stretch for the next one. So I'm going now. Thank you so much for joining. So appreciate everyone. Thank you, Ellie, for coming on. Ellie from Oregon.
Yep.
And everyone should all, myself included, do a lot of good work this week in this area. It will help all of us in everything in our relationship with God. Thank you so much for joining. Shavua Tov.
Thank you.